Hello, everybody. Welcome to the West Virginia Mountaineer post-game live show. I'm Greg Crist, joined by, of course, Frank Fear and Mike Dunlap. Guys, it's always we look forward to this a lot more after a win than what we do after a loss. So we're happy to be coming to you today after the Mountaineer victory. And I tell you what, they looked awful good today. I felt like, and there were points when you felt I don't know, but overall, pretty good performance by our team today.
Yeah, where's the defense? Well, we know where the defense are. That was
Yep.
incredible, and really forcing Sorsby into mistakes. If I'm not
Yep.
mistaken, I think 17 points on turnovers. The
Yep.
offense didn't perform the way we thought in the pregame show. We all, including Tanner Russell, who did a great job in the pregame, Mike, thought that one of the big weaknesses in Cincinnati is their rushing defense and their defense overall in terms of yards given up. And it wasn't until the third quarter when West Virginia finally took the time of possession and the
Mhm.
yardage, and then it went away in one game.
Yeah.
What'd you think, Mike?
Yeah, I thought they looked good in all three phases, especially special teams were great. As far as the defensive scheme, I thought that the corners played closer this week than they have all year. And I thought, Nico played good, but he's still in that growing process uh, that I think will eventually pay benefits. But yeah, overall, A minus.
Yeah, talking about our defense, one of the things every week that I've said is that, we've got to get pressure on the quarterback to help our defensive backs. I thought our defensive line did a pretty good job of getting some pressure on him today. They sacked him a couple times, flushed him out a couple times, stripped the ball from him, did some really good things, and I think that helped our defensive backs tremendously. And like Mike said, they were up a little closer coverage wise. We didn't give up the huge plays. We had a couple of them that were big plays for them. But I thought the defensive line performed pretty well, and I think that helped our backside some. Special teams, I thought, stood out with Fox return to football. Some nice returns, put us in good field position numerous times. So I thought our special team performed well, covered well on the kickoffs, covered well on the punts. Offensively, I thought, we first starting off established the run game. And then, I know, we talk about establishing the run game. I think when people think of that, they think of you coming out and getting 6-8 yards of carry and that sort of thing. But, really, like it's today, you establish the run game, you may only get 3 yards or 4 yards, but it then puts you in a 2nd and 6. And then you may run it again, and then you're in a 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2. And it helps open up the playbook quite a bit. And I thought we did that. We didn't have many negative gains from scrimmage. So I thought the run game, even though it wasn't explosive, it was still good enough. And, that helped with the play fakes. And then the short passing game a little bit, I thought worked well, especially early. We threw some nice screens on that first drive and second drive. And, I felt like we did establish the run game, although it wasn't super explosive. We still had it there, and it was effective in what we needed it to do.
Mm-hmm.
And close to breaking some long runs too, Greg.
Yeah.
So, the offensive line played well, and it's a growing up moment in my opinion. When you come out, you're behind. Now you take a big lead. It's eaten into, and now you come back. So that team grew up today.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And, I was very worried when I got on my handheld. You don't see this very often, but that line jumped just before kickoff from Cincinnati -4 to Cincinnati 5.5. And so a bunch of late money came in on the Bearcats. And, I have no idea why. But the fact of the matter is it went off at 5.5. And here the Mountaineers winning by 7, which is a 12 and a half point swing. But I looked at, I agree with what you guys are saying. I mean, I really do. I think, Greg, the running game was established maybe in a somewhat unconventional way.
Frank, you're breaking up awful bad on us. I'll jump in there and take over. I think what Frank was saying is, the swing again, is a credit to us. And I think all of us were a little bit worried when, we're up 24-7. We're driving the ball. We got a chance to ice the game. I think we score a touchdown there. It's over. We get a field goal. It's basically over. And we end up throwing an interception down there, which incidentally, everybody's going to complain about the play call. I question a little bit myself, but it was a kind of a safe pass.
We lost Greg. Frank, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
We lost Greg.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think I wouldn't worry about that, Mike, because I think it's gonna catch here in a second. And we've got for those who are watching, he's down in Kentucky, Mike's in West Virginia, I'm in Michigan, and so these things happen. What I was saying before, if you can hear me, Mike,
Yes.
Mike, is that but when you look at the stats, there's still pause for thought. I mean, we're outgained total yards 435 to 248, and yet they give up about 400 yards a game, and yet we gave up 400 yards. The passing was 280 to 160. We only had 160 today. We only had 92 yards rushing, and they had 157. Now, Corey Kiner is fantastic. And the time of possession was just, as I said earlier, we didn't catch up until the third quarter, and then we lost it again. And the final was 34 minutes to 25 minutes. And so if you look at the stats, I think you say Cincinnati won by 2 touchdowns. And then if you watch the game, you understand because of the turnovers. And this is something that Joey Foster said in the pregame show. This quarterback is a different character when he's under pressure. That's basically what happened. I mean, when he was under pressure, he was a totally different character as quarterback.
Yeah, there were several instances where I thought we had him, either in the backfield or after a short game. But the guy's good. He's an athlete. He has that something in his step. And he's a competitor, and he's good. But I'm surprised about the yardage total, other than the 80-yard pass for Cincinnati. And one thing that kind of bothers me, it doesn't seem like we put the drives together, fulfilling drives. We had 168. One pass was 50 yards from Nico. That kind of baffles me, Frank.
Well, here's the thing, Mike, and Greg is back with us. I started keeping tabs on after they went ahead 7-0. I started keeping tabs on their number of drives and the total number of yards. And I think here's the answer that takes the baffle away. After they went ahead 7-0, they had 7 drives for a total of 75 yards. The defense won this game, period. And we tend to look at offensive statistics. And the bottom line is that this game, you have to look at the defense. And a lot of the things that we look at in sort of totals don't necessarily show up. The 80-yard pass is going to show up in the offensive. But the fact of the matter is, with 17 points on turnovers and they having 7 drives for 75 yards, looking totally inept, Greg, it was the defense. This was the defense, and we've been waiting for that.
Yeah, like I said, we gave up a couple of the big plays, but other than that, we held them in check, and their running game didn't do anything. And I think they said at halftime the one kid had 75 yards, but he had 18 carries. And I said, again, the defense kept pressure on the quarterback, which helped our defensive backs, and we shut down the run pretty well, which we've done most of the year, I think. Thinking back on it, we've handled the rush pretty well. But I thought the defense, we were looking at takeaways and giveaways there last week, and in the games that West Virginia had lost, the number of turnovers to takeaways was really lopsided as opposed to the games we won. And, today, we have 1 turnover, and we had 3 or 4 takeaways, and those takeaways all turned into points. And our defense just seemed to be, you hate to point at it and say, well, we replaced that coach. The defense was different. But they just seemed to be more, I don't know, relaxed and just playing the game. They were flying around on defense. They were covering people, chasing that quarterback all over the place. I just felt like the defense really stepped up, and they just seemed to be playing more freely today. And like we talked about this morning, I'm not so sure that a lot of that didn't come from the mental part of it, of not having to think everything out. We're in this simple defense. We're doing this. Let's go get them, and I think that really helped defensively. Now, on the offensive side, granted, I know, we didn't sustain any, super drives, but we moved the ball pretty well. And, even you include that last drive we had, we drove right down the field and had a chance to ice it away. But through the interception in the end zone, that was a pretty nice drive, 40, 50-yard drive. And we ate up a lot of clock there. One of the things we said we wanted to do was the time of possession. I don't know what that turned into since we had the defensive scores. Yeah. That time of possession can be a little bit warped.
That's right.
But I felt like we kept the ball pretty good bit. I mean, I felt like we controlled the ball a good bit. And you didn't, today for some reason it just seemed a little different. You didn't feel bad. You go a 3 and out and you're like, oh gosh, here we go. We got to punt the ball back to them again. But today you kind of felt like our defense will hold up here and we'll get it back. You kind of felt better about the defense and that you were going to get the ball back. And I just thought the defensive performance was excellent. But I'll say this, and I want to ask you all an honest question. When we threw the interception in the end zone and they scored on the first play, did all of you think, man, Mountaineers, here we go again? I bet everybody thought that. Here we go again. I was thinking the same thing. We had a chance to ice the game. We gave it back to them. The momentum completely switched right there. I said, how many times have we seen this happen? Mm-hmm. But again, I feel like our defense stepped up and saved the day.
Yeah.
And Greg, that guy made a hell of an interception.
Oh, it was a great interception.
It wasn't like he just threw it, hit him in the chest. But, you have that thought. Here they are eating away. We see too many games and too many sports that we've seen that happen. And that's what I say. They grew up today. They withheld that comeback and extended the lead at the end of the game, and they should be proud of that.
Yep.
You're talking about the defensive coordinator. The commentator made a comment that it wasn't so much they were doing so much things different, although we know they were playing the corner spider.
Yeah.
But it was the timing of the calls.
Yeah.
So I found that interesting too. But Trotter was a beast today, as he is every week. But there seemed to be that snap in their step today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we talked about that this morning as far as the defensive calls. Again, I don't know anything about defense, and halftime don't know what they're talking about. But Neil Brown brought up, we were in a covered Tampa 2 or something when we shouldn't have been, and it left this linebacker playing this All-American receiver. We got in those situations 2 or 3 times. Well, I think that's what they were, pointing to today was the fact that, the calls weren't, the defensive calls weren't so obviously bad, and again, as a common fan sitting there watching it, I don't see that. All I see is a guy running down the middle of the field wide open. Mm-hmm. I'm like, why are we not covering him?
Mm-hmm.
You don't think about the play call on defense, what they were supposed to do, and what they did do. And, I think they were pointing that out today that the timing of the calls were pretty good. I only remember us really sending a hard blitz once or twice, got burned on it. And so I think that they kept it vanilla. And I thought it would allow them to play a lot looser. And they just went after it. And I thought that was great. I had hoped that was what was going to happen. I felt like it might happen because, I didn't think that there was going to be drastic changes on the defense because you can't change everything in a week. But I did feel like it was going to be simplified a little bit. And the calls, I think, were simplified. And I think that benefited us greatly. Mm-hmm. And, they just played better all around, I thought.
Well, I think they took advantage of the bye week.
Yeah.
No question.
Yep.
But to Mike, to your question, that was a great interception. Where was Gallagher?
Yeah, he didn't really fight for it,
He fell down.
fell down. Yeah.
I believe he was interfered with, and that's why
Yeah, I
that
think he
was
was
interfered.
too. Yeah, and
He tripped
and I
him.
said he didn't. I said he didn't fight for it, but he couldn't fight for it. He was going down, and a lot of people are going to complain about the play call. It's 3rd and 3. We run it, see what happens, run some clock, kick a field goal. That's better than not getting anything. The play call, really, that pass play is kind of a safe pass play because you either catch it for a touchdown or it goes out of bounds typically. But like Frank said, I think the receiver got knocked down, and the guy did make a great catch on it. No question about that. But I do think he interfered right there. So I didn't have a big problem with the play call. If you'd known it was going to turn into an interception, of course you'd do something different. But, I thought the play call was pretty good. I know they felt like that was a safe pass to throw, because like I said, usually the only negative on a play like that is that it goes out of bounds. You get a catch, you get interference. Typically, you don't get an interference and an interception. One's called good, one's called but not called at all. But that's what happened. So looking back, hindsight's 20/20. You can say, "Oh, that was a terrible play call," but really, I don't think it was. And I thought, and again, I check on social media occasionally. I'm about done with that. Saw all these negative comments. It was unbelievable. I'm sitting there looking at these comments. I'm thinking, what are you all watching? Because they're complaining about Neil Brown. Now they're complaining about Nico, how he's slower than dirt and all this. And I'm just like, man, they ain't nothing gonna make these people happy. That's why I say Neil Brown's gonna stay there, and he's gonna be there next year. And people better get used to it and just root for our team and quit being so negative about it.
And you talk about criticizing play call, Greg. It's 3rd and 17, say, and they run a draw play and get 2 yards. Worst call in football.
Oh,
but
yeah.
You know what? If it goes for a touchdown, brilliant.
Oh, what a great call.
Brilliant.
Great call. Yep.
So,
that's why I didn't have any problem really with any of the play calls today. I thought our play calling was good. I thought we had them off balance several times. And I think that play in particular is what most would consider a fairly safe pass play, and again, because you're throwing it to the sideline,
that's right.
Usually the worst thing can happen is it's overthrown, goes out of bounds, whatever. It's rarely an interception on that without an interference. And I think, like Frank said, that was an interference, but he got the interception. But I don't criticize that play call at all. I thought it was fine.
And other than that, Greg, I thought the referees had a great game.
Yeah.
They were.
Somebody's getting ready back through your front door, Mike.
Yeah.
That's my kid. That's my kidney doctor.
Oh my goodness.
Let's wait and see if it goes off again.
Maybe
Sorry about that. I've got a thing I call the bat phone. It hooks all my telemetry to it.
Yeah.
And then I have a panic button I can push that directs me right to him. But I think that's what that was.
Oh, wow.
Well,
yeah.
I know we would really increase our viewership if you kick out on the broadcast.
Yeah.
But we don't want that to happen.
No, absolutely.
Thanks.
Yeah. No.
But
we're still on your side, Mike. We're not going for ratings, man. We want you to do that.
I appreciate that. But
right.
I thought the refs worked as a team in calling some of those plays, picking up some flags.
Yeah.
And I like it when they do that. It's not an ego thing. I saw it, I called it. That's the way it's going to be.
And too, as far as the flags concerned, I thought, I don't know what the penalty yardage was again today, but I thought West Virginia played a pretty clean game. We didn't have a bunch of penalties on us, and we've had a problem with that. And you saw it in the first one of the drives there we scored on it afterwards, but we had a 3rd and 5, and we jumped and made it 3rd and 10. We still got it, went in and scored, but how many times this year have we seen it where we get in a situation and we get a penalty on us and that screws us up? We didn't have that today. I don't know what our penalty yardage was, but it didn't seem like we had many against us.
15
yards.
45 for Cincinnati.
Okay. Yeah, I knew we had the 1 5-yard. That's the only one I can remember. Must have been a hold or something somewhere along the line that I missed. But Yeah, that's pretty good. I thought we played a pretty clean game today, and that's a good thing. That's that discipline thing we've been talking about, and I think that's a positive sign that you guys realize, hey, you got to be disciplined. You got to get set. You got to not jump, not hold, et cetera, et cetera. And again, though, with the play of our defensive line, that helps a lot as far as the holding in the backfield and all that defensive backfield is concerned, because when you're getting pressure on that guy back there, those guys just can't run around all over the place, and you got to try to keep up with them, which is impossible to do. And sometimes you got to grab a hold of them to hang on, and hope they don't get away from you. But we didn't have to do that. We got that pressure on, and it helped our defensive back greatly, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
Again, people out there that know football may look at me and think that guy's stupid. He don't know what he's talking about, and that may be true. In most cases, that is true. But in this case, I just felt like the way our defensive line performed helped our defensive back so much, so much.
Yeah, that's right. And putting it in broader perspective, I think it really helps. And I'm glad that the announcers put up the graphic with the aggregate results of the records of the teams we've lost to, 28-5 going in today. And we talked in the pregame show about Cincinnati could have gone into this game 7-1. They lost 2 games by 4 points total, 1 by 1, 1 by 3. And I was very impressed with that crowd. They were right on. They were there. They were engaged. They were right in there. And it's a good team. And when you think of their numbers, with Kiner and all the other guys, even the quarterback Sorsby, Kiner's a great runner. There's no question about that. But we control them. The thing that still is surprising to me, though, is that, again, we were talking when we had to drop out for technology reasons, but boy, you look at that. If you just looked at the stats for the game, you would think that Cincinnati won by 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
But God bless the defense. And now we're in a little bit of a disadvantage because I didn't realize this. You guys may have. Baylor's off this week.
Yeah.
So they have a bye week to get ready for West Virginia. That's a huge game for them because the standings have changed. Now Cincinnati has three losses, and I think does Baylor have 2 or 3? I got to look that up. But it's that's going to be a big game.
Yep. Yeah, that probably is somewhat of an advantage to them. I think for our sake today, another thing I noticed, we didn't have a lot of injuries. I don't know if you all pay attention to that, but other than Jackson, I don't remember anybody really coming up lame and limping off the field or anything like that. So it looks like we're pretty healthy. So you kind of look at it the other way and say, well, we're back in the groove now, and we got to be feeling good after this win. Maybe that'll help us this coming weekend, even though they have the bye.
Mm-hmm.
You're hopeful that we just are getting more and more in sync. And I've said all year, Frank, Mike, both, that I feel like we are, that close to being a really, really good football team. I just think we're just inches away. Still, today not totally dominant, but you see some things in our team that is really encouraging. And I just think we're just a player or two away from being a really good football team. And I think if these wins help, get that confidence level up a little bit, we could roll this thing out,
Yep.
Sure can. Same scenario as last year, kind of, going in down the stretch. Win these last 4, 8-4, looking at a bowl game, and maybe another 9-4 season.
Yeah, if I'm Neil Brown and we do that, end up 9-4, I go to Brim Baker here, make a schedule, and say, listen, I'm tired of playing these number 1, number 2, number 3 teams in the country first couple of weeks of the season. Give us some lightweights so we can get things going, and then we'll take them on. Because you always feel like at a certain point you're like, man, wish we could play Pitt again. Man, wish we could play Penn State again. And I think that's affected us. And again, it was brought up this morning by Tanner about our defensive backs and how all of them were portal guys transferred in for the most part, and it takes a while to gel them. It takes a while for them all to get used to playing with each other. understanding what's going on and that sort of thing. And, it's tough when you start off with a horrendous schedule to begin with. And in Neil Brown's defense, we've had that for the last couple of years. And that's tough, man. I mean, you go out there right off the bat and play all these good teams right at the top end of your schedule. You want that more toward the middle or the end. You don't want them all right at the beginning. And it puts us in a bad way. And he has to deal with a lot of flack, to get things going. But again, I'm happy for him. I'm happy for our team, happy for our fans. I just wish the naysayers would just go get in the hole for a while and let us play it out and root for our team.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Or at least split the games up where they're not back to back.
Right.
Group around a bye week or a not so competitive team on your schedule. But you know what? Also, as a player, Greg, you want to play those guys.
Oh yeah.
You want to see what your medal is against Penn State.
Oh yeah.
Why wasn't I recruited by them? And as a coach, I'm sure in basketball, you looked upon it as a challenge.
Absolutely.
When an undefeated team come into your house.
Yeah.
When I played high school basketball. One year we beat the number 4 team that had Steve Berger as the guard at
Valley High School.
One of the best victories in any sport while I was there, because we were about 30-point underdogs.
Yeah.
And but our philosophy was always bring them on. As a sophomore, we were AA. We played a 4A team out of Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
And their coach come off the bus saying, wonder why he was playing this little podunk school from Boca. And he went back with a 42-27 loss to a AA team. So, bring it on is my theory. Even though you got to be smart about it too, like you said.
Right.
You don't have to play them back to back.
Right.
But
our conference schedule typically is, relatively tough. And, then you throw those teams in for your out-of-conference games. You might want to look at, dropping it down a notch, and, just playing one or having one and then a week or two and then have another. Do it that way. I don't know what the conference schedules and all that's like. I don't know how they do all that, but it would be nice not to have them all bunched there together at the beginning of the season. I think we'd all agree to that. Any coach probably would too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we talked about the cupcake schedule several times. But, while I got the floor, I have a question for you guys. When West Virginia went to Cincinnati today, and this is for all people that are watching, how many football helmets did they take with them?
I'd say maybe 2 for each guy. I don't have any idea.
We'll tell the answer towards the end of the show.
Okay. All right.
But you're way off.
Okay. I don't know what you're getting at there, but
well, it was a trivia question that can't be Googled.
Okay. That's right.
Good deal.
You're not going to find that.
There you go. Good deal.
Yeah. I think with the going back to the schedule issue, Greg, I think that Ren Baker has shown his hands about what he's going to do by basically buying himself out of the ECU game down there in Greenville. Nothing against ECU, fine school, good program. And then connecting in Charlotte with Virginia twice, which means it's not a home and home. Both games in Charlotte. I wouldn't be a bit surprised to see him. I wouldn't be surprised to see Syracuse on the schedule at some point in the future, or Boston College on the schedule in the future. I'd be shocked to see Penn State on the schedule. I think that's too much, but the bottom line is that gives you that kind of mix where you have a competitive chance.
Right. Yeah, and when you then look at your season of work, those teams, Virginia, Syracuse, whoever, they're not pushovers by any stretch. They're good, solid programs, so it don't hurt you in the eyes of the national media or whoever selects all these teams. But it gives you a fighting chance. You can compete and have a chance for wins. And again, I'm not saying we should be afraid of anybody. We're not afraid of anybody. I just think that it's not conducive. In today's game with the NIL and transfer portal and all that, to play these blue buds right off the bat, back to back, whatever the case may be. It just takes a while to get everybody integrated into your system and, get them playing together and that sort of thing. And when you go out and you get Penn State puts a shellacking on you pretty much, it throws you even into more disarray, so you get teams you can compete with, be competitive with, and probably should win some games there. Then it gives you a chance to mold and get everything together. I think will be a lot more, again, conducive to a successful season than going out and battering them right off the bat, having injuries, losing games, getting in disarray. You got the crowd, the fans going crazy, wanting to hang you and all that sort of thing. It would change the whole perspective, I think.
Couldn't agree more. And as a fan, as a player, an inner, I can't remember what you used to call it, Frank, when you would play outside of your area, an inner regional matchup with some school that might not be the toughest, but be a new name on the schedule. To bring them in, let the fans see somebody, and that, well, I don't know who it would be, but along those lines, a new opponent in Mountaineer Field.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times that's easier said than done. I mean, you just can't go out and pick and choose who you want to play. You got to work schedules together and all that. But yeah, I'm with you. I think bringing folks in, and again, not bad teams, just teams that you're more competitive with and year in, year out. I mean, you can look at, say, a Syracuse, for example. Syracuse is a pretty good football team at times, and same way with West Virginia, pretty good at times. But again, putting them back to back like at the beginning of the season, I think it's just hard on the whole program. I think it. Now, if you go out there and win them, great. But how often is that going to happen? No matter how good you are, and you get better as the season goes on. But if you've already lost 3 or 4 games, people are still not satisfied. So I think you gotta be strategic when you do these schedules. And I know it's not the easiest thing in the world, just go out and get somebody to play. I understand that, but there's some strategy involved with it, no doubt about it.
And in today's world, your goal is to make the playoffs.
Right.
Before, as we know, it was always to be undefeated and days gone by, be voted on, or then play for the national championship. But now your goal is to get into the playoffs and see what happens. What college coach in the country wouldn't want to be in a position to be 4 games away from the national championship? So that's changed too, Greg. It make it point to what you're saying. Let's get those wins on there, quality wins, and let the commission look at it. Even if this year would be better, the Penn State loss would be a plus because of the way they play. Same with Pitt.
And my big problem with all of it too, it goes back again, Frank has heard me rant about this several times. You start the season as West Virginia, you lose the first game. You got to win your next 8 to get back in the top 25, and it's because of the way they do these rankings at the beginning of the season before anybody's even played, and they talk about, well, this team upset this team. Well, it really wasn't an upset. So you look at Georgia Tech beating Florida State, biggest upset in college football. Well, as it turns out, it really wasn't that big of a deal because Florida State can't beat anybody. And, but you put yourself, as a West Virginia team where you're not even in the top 30, you lose that first game, you drop even further. You got to win so many games to crawl back in there. And if you lose 2 or 3, you can forget it. You're done. And I think that's one of the reasons why you front end of the schedule, make it light so that you can, get your ranking up there a little bit. And then hopefully you win 7 or 8 games in a row, then you lose one, you don't drop completely off the face of the earth, which is what happens otherwise, because you're not up there to begin with.
Yeah. There are a couple of other things along the lines here too. I agree with Mike. It's, when you think about Oregon coming in and playing Michigan, that's a big game. That I know it's a league game, but that's the intercontinental or the inter-regional play. But, if West Virginia were to sign Oregon, think about the money that West Virginia would have to shell out to get Oregon to travel. The other thing is, going back to what Greg said, when you lose, you're right. When you lose to a Penn State, you got to win 8 in a row to even be considered reasonable to get into the top 25. And there's also a thing called the sort of the overall body of work that extends beyond years, where there's a pattern. Here's Penn State again in the same spot, year after year after year. They can't score from the 1-yard line at home, and they lose to Penn State. They lose to Ohio State, and they can't beat Ohio State, and they can't be Ohio State. So the mindset of both fans and the analysts, Penn State can't get over the hump. And so that, those things you have to take both the money and the politics and the perception into consideration as you're putting together these schedules. And that's why I think dropping ECU and adding UVA for 2 neutral site games in a community with a lot of Mountaineer fans, I think makes a lot of business sense and a lot of football sense.
Yeah, I agree. And, because say you get an ECU and you get a win, well, that's not viewed as anything, great. But you beat UVA on a neutral site. Well, that's a pretty nice win for you. I think that means more than, a win at ECU. And then if you happen to stub your toe against ECU, you're done. You're done for the year. And so, yeah, not a bad move on West Virginia's part. I don't think. I think it's again, you got to have a little bit of strategy in mind when you put these schedules together. And sometimes it probably does pay off to back out of one and go into another one. Again, maybe a little bit more competitive team, but still somebody that you feel like you can beat.
Right.
Of course, I know you don't want to say that about anybody. We think we can beat them, so we're putting them on the schedule. But when you look at
locker board, bulletin board stuff, Frank.
Yeah, there you go. Bulletin board material. Yep.
Are you guys surprised by this score?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yes.
Of course, you keep thinking Kansas is going to, start playing at some point. They think they're a better team than what they've shown, but I wouldn't expect it against Iowa State.
That's why they play them, guys.
That's right.
As we said many times, the other teams got Division I athletes too that want to win and want to compete, and the other team may have some guys that may not be at their best. Their mind may be in the stands, thinking about their girlfriend afterwards, and drop a pass, miss a block, miss a call, and those things add up.
Here's another one. That doesn't surprise me, guys, at all. That's on the road at Texas Tech. They're tough there. We end the season there. They just have a way of rising up wild fans. We all know that. And Colorado, just the opposite of what I was talking about. Because of the profile that Prime has, they go into every game with a load of people, including a number of people who never, ever probably set foot on Colorado's campus, are just supporting Prime and the Buffaloes. And so they've got this halo effect. And yet they were favorites, I think, going into that game. Let me check.
Frank, you talk about that. We were talking this morning about possible coaches, how people are, screaming for Saban and Jimbo Fisher and those sorts of things. That would be, to me, the only positive I could get out of that is that if, Nick Saban were our coach, we'd probably be ranked 8th when the season started next year.
Yeah.
But neither one's going to happen.
I see where Nick Saban had not been unranked since about 2007 or something crazy number. I might not be right on the year, but
yeah, I would think that would propel us into the top 10 immediately.
Yeah,
but I've always had an issue with these rankings and the way they do them, especially before the season even starts. I think that's so unfair because these teams come in after week one, number 2 in the country, and they lose and they drop down to 8th or 9th. And West Virginia may come in at number 25. They lose. They're out of the picture for good.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's so unfair the way they do that. And
yeah,
a good example of that, Greg, is when Appalachian State beat Michigan.
Yep.
Michigan was ranked number 1 and
Yep.
fell clear out of the poll, I believe.
Yep.
After one loss to a good Appalachian State team, but nonetheless,
Yep.
The number 1 team in the country.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, we didn't know at the time, Mike, having been from Michigan and studied this, we didn't really realize that it was more than a game. There were flaws in the U of M program that were reflected for years and years that were so far away from what you would expect from the program that has more wins than any other team in college football history. It was shocking. By the way, these games we've been watching in the Big 12 are important. If you believe Neil Brown's prediction that he believes a 2-loss team will end up in the championship game, because ISU is 4-1, Colorado is 4-1, Texas Tech is 4-2, and so if ISU drops to 4-2, if Colorado drops to 4-2, and Texas Tech goes to 5-2. I mean, there are a lot of ways that this could be played, but a lot of them favor West Virginia and put a lot of pressure on this Baylor team, which is 3-3 going into a bye week. They're in a bye week, and 5-4 overall. So not different really much from Cincinnati, so it'll be interesting. And they're by the way, Baylor's 1-3 on the road for the year. So.
Yeah, I think we said this morning too. We talked about this and the two lost team possibly getting in. It's just like I said this morning. Every game from here on out for us is make or break game. I mean, if we can maintain and somehow win out, we'll probably be in that championship game. Which is a great opportunity. I mean, if we'd win that, yeah, we're in. I guess that's the way it works. And no reason why we can't, I don't think. And again, I've watched these teams in the Big 12, been saying this all year, watched them all. I don't think any of them are head and shoulders above West Virginia by any stretch. I think we had a couple poor performances against some pretty good teams that made us look bad. But I think when we were playing and we play like we did today, we play like we did at Oklahoma State, we've got a chance to beat any of them.
Yeah,
I agree. It's what at some point, it may be this week, maybe next week, West Virginia's going to pull it all together. Let's hope, and everybody's going to be on the same page, patting each other on the helmet, showing enthusiasm, which they thought they did some of that today.
Yep.
And get on the roll. For people that are not sports people or not involved, folks, momentum is a real thing. You hear them talking about they've gained it or they've lost it. I'm here to tell you it's a real thing. Would you agree with that, Greg?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I don't think there's any question. I think you can see it in a game. Just like today when we threw the interception, that changed the momentum. Cincinnati, caught fire there for a few minutes, but we were able to grab it back from them. But yeah, I think you come into next week's game, you got this win behind you. It's just like I said about being on a bye week. You're riding high right now, so you want to keep that going. And a bye week is always nice to heal up and that sort of thing. But I think we're pretty healthy, and I think playing this week and playing well might be a spark that gets us over the top. We may turn this thing around after all. And I'm pretty confident in, like I said, in the way our defense played today, that if they can show that each week, our offense is going to be fine. They'll be fine. But yeah, the momentum I think is definitely it's definitely there, and you can sense it and see it a lot of times. But yeah, I agree. Let's see what's this. When the offensive line doesn't get a push, we can't run. When we get a lead, Neil calls two conservative plays and lets the team back in the game. Well, I don't know about that. I thought I thought the calls were good. I thought, I thought we ran the ball okay. I don't think we dominated by any stretch, but we moved the ball well enough. I felt like, and I felt like the play calling was actually pretty good today. I don't know what you guys think, Frank. I thought it was okay.
Yep, I think it was okay, and I'm not sure Neil Brown's calling the plays anymore. I thought he gave that up to one of his assistants. But be that as it may, one of the things I wanted to bring up is that from more than once, we have talked about Reed Carrico in negative terms, and he had a hell of a game today, caused a fumble, and made a number of really good plays. And it's just good. And this goes back to one of the things Tanner was talking about, Russell, in the pregame show, is that we view this portal as though these players can shift from team to team and they just blend in immediately, and that's all. Everything's fine, but it's not, and it takes time. And I think a number of us were surprised, given the fact that Carrico came from Ohio State, that he would come in and contribute immediately. But that hasn't been the case, and so I'll be interested in looking at the Pro Football Focus grades tomorrow.
Yep. Yeah, I always like to look at those grades. I think that really tells a lot. There's a comment about the interception down there. Shouldn't have thrown that interception.
Good point.
Should have ran a ball. Yep, down at the goal line. Should have kicked field goal for. Yeah, that's what I said. I mean, if you run it there, you're not going to hurt yourself. If you get a first down, great. If you don't, you kick the field goal and take the points. But again, I think the pass play that they threw was a fairly safe pass play. Again, maybe I don't know enough about football to know, but it seemed to me like that's a pretty safe pass play to run where you're throwing it to the boundary. And usually the worst thing can happen is you throw it out of bounds. But again, I felt like we got interfered with, and the guy made a great play. I wasn't too shook up about the play call. I thought it was okay.
And early on, when we went for it on fourth down, when we could have kicked a field goal, I thought we should have kicked a field goal. Get points on the board, break that bubble. It was still, it might have been the first drive. I can't remember. And get some points on the board. Get that blood and the taste of blood in your mouth. So that's not a call I question. I understand why they did it, but I'm thinking if I'm the coach, I kick a field goal. Hello?
Yeah, that was the first possession, and I was kind of like you. I felt like we should probably kick it. I don't remember where we were at. We were in their territory, but if you can get a field goal from there, I think you should take it. Of course, the way they moved the ball right down the field, I'm sure the coaches felt like they could get it, or they wouldn't have went for it, obviously. But yeah, I'm like you. I think maybe that was one point where I felt like we should have took the points for sure. Yeah. So that shifted momentum too.
Right, and early in the game, you're not looking. Say they do score another touchdown right off the bat. Now you're not looking at 14-0. At least you have something on the scoreboard.
Right.
And somewhere down the road, who knows where that 3 might have came in. Just, again, here, there, whatever, just discussing. But I would have kicked the field goal.
Yep. And like I said, hindsight's 20/20. If you, if you go for it and you get it, you go on down and score, then it's a great decision. Just like the pass in the end zone. If you catch it and score the touchdown, put the game away, greatest play call ever.
Right.
That's the worst play call ever. So that's easy to do after the fact.
It sure is.
Easy to do.
Yeah,
I thought our play was okay today.
On that pass play, I agree with David, and I'll tell you why. You know this, guys. You've played and coached the game. When you get into a situation like that, you have to evaluate the risk with the reward. that was a high risk, high reward play call. When in fact you were in control of the game, and you didn't want to give them anything. And as Woody Hayes would say, or as a Bo Schembechler, bad things happen when you pass the ball. It's either going to be incomplete or it's going to be intercepted. Out of three things. Okay, so the bottom line was it was completely unnecessary. And when I wrote this down, and that was the point when somehow my shoe went through the television. After that, seven drives, previous drives for 75 yards total. One play that lasted 13 seconds for 80 yards.
Yeah.
So that the bottom line is, if you think about David's question and you say, well, we could debate it, forget it. Look at the outcome. The outcome was high risk. You got screwed.
Yeah.
And you just, I would conclude, you do not do that in that situation, because you're running the risk of what happened, worst case scenario. So 75 yards. So now your defense has held. And so now your offense is putting your defense in a bad situation, and you undo 8 plays of 75 yards in 13 seconds.
That's a good point, Frank.
It makes no sense.
Yep,
Yeah, it's
that's
maddening.
a good point. The also, if you're going to call that play, that wide receiver wasn't very tall, in my opinion. Get your tallest guy in there to go up and get it. I don't know what his height was, but to me, he looked like he was average height, 6 foot. 6 foot
It
one.
was Gallagher.
Yeah, let me look and see if I can find it.
And I'll say too, I agree.
Yeah, I got it.
Again, looking back 2020, it's easy to say we shouldn't do that. If we are going to pass, I'll change my look at it. If you are going to throw a pass play there, that was probably the best one to throw. Because it was again, it's a fairly low risk play, throwing it to the boundary like that. But I agree. I mean, I think we should have run the ball and all that. And I'm sure as Coach Brown looks at it, he'll say, "Man, I wish we'd have run the ball there." I'm sure. But in the middle of the game and you're making these calls, you're thinking, hey, if we can pop this one, game over, and didn't work out that way. So,
yeah, we've had an hour to talk about it. Those guys had 20 seconds to make a decision.
Right. Yeah.
He's 5'10", Mike.
5'10".
Gallagher, he's 5'10". But the other thing I was going to say, we've been singing the praises of we've been talking about Carrico. Got to step up. Let me look at the stats here, guys. Take me a second to get in here. Push this button, and push this button, and we push the box score. And we have only 4 guys who caught passes. Justin Robinson had 2, Cole Taylor had 5, and Traylon Ray and Jaheim White had 1. And there's noticeable people missing when you think of the West Virginia offense, and it's Clement. Didn't have a catch. I'm not even sure they went to him. Did you guys see him on the field?
I don't recall his name being called.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah.
No, I thought about him a couple of times, and while we quit going to him, and like I said, I didn't see him out there. I don't know if he may have been. I just missed it, but I haven't heard much out of him in the last few weeks. And he was one of our go-to guys early.
Yeah. They kept on going to Ray.
Yeah.
I tell you what, Nico throws a great 50-yard bomb.
Yeah, he's spot on, isn't he?
It is pretty. It is a tight spiral, and you're right. He drops it down. I mean, my goodness.
Yeah.
Yep. Very accurate.
That's right. On the defensive side, guys, let's give these guys credit. Anthony Wilson Jr. had a hell of a game in a variety of ways. His name was called a lot. He had 11 total tackles, half of which 6 solo. And Trotter had a great game, 12 total tackles, 3 solo. And here we go again. Mulba, who sort of is out there but not always talked about, led the tackles with 13 and 5 solo. And Lathan had a good game, 8 and 4. And Hollis, 7 and 3. Bradley had a good game, 7 and 3. Tarnu had a good game, 6 and 6 total. And how many of those were that's amazing with Tarnu. 6 tackles and all of them were solos. So that defense, as Mark Parsons said, they did. The defense stole the show, no question. Really good.
Glad to see. Speaking of the defense, glad to see Sean Martin step up there and he got a sack today. We haven't heard much out of him this season.
Yeah.
And I told my son here earlier watching games, I ain't heard his name called much. He got a late sack, which was pivotal in the game, I thought. So glad to see that.
Lathan, Jackson, and Martin. Yeah, exactly. And Preston Fox. If you look at this, I mean, he had 130 yards on special teams, 84 with kickoff returns with a long of 43, and he had long of 29, 49, 46 yards total on returns. And at the beginning of the season, coaches talked about how he was going to be featured. This is the game that, my God, that sideline was just made for him. It was great to see.
Yep. Yeah, that part of the special teams was again, we performed well there because of him. And then, like I said, we got down and made plays on the kickoffs and on the punt returns. Did a really, really good job. Our special teams were top notch. And I think we all mentioned in our keys to the game, turnovers, time of possession, that sort of thing. Defensive line playing better. Offensive line establishing the running game. I think all those things pretty much came to fruition. Things that we talked about being the keys, and those are going to be the keys every week. If you win that turnover battle like we did today, you got a good chance. That's just plain and simple. You got a really good chance if you win the turnover battle. And but I thought all the things we talked about in the pregame pretty much came to fruition today. Seemed like everything was spot on.
And it was a hard hitting game too.
Oh yeah.
Several big licks. When you can hear those big licks on the television, somebody's hit somebody.
Yep.
And we give as much as we received, and that's a good sign. But I hope they continue that mindset of laying the leather and seeing what happens.
Yeah, again, I think it's that's all attributed to relaxing and playing freely. You're out there running around hitting people. That's what you want to see, and I think we did that today.
Yeah, sure. When you don't have to think about
right
90 calls.
Am I in the wrong place, or am I supposed to be here or there? I think that made a big difference. So pretty good performance. Frank, you got anything before we wrap up here you'd like to throw out? There's that score.
No, but though we're seeing some upsets. Yeah, look at that KU. We knew that KU wasn't as quote unquote bad as they were showing, and they had a string of bad luck losing at the end. And ISU lost, as we mentioned last week, in a shocking way at the end of that Texas Tech game. And again, Texas Tech, which started sort of shaky, now looks a little bit stronger. They're ahead of Colorado, and this may end up to be quite a. It's 21-7. I'm sorry, Iowa State has scored. That's a mistake on my part. So it's 21-7, with 9 minutes left in the second quarter. Kansas over Iowa State, and it's Texas Tech 10, Colorado 0. 6 minutes left in the first, and so the only thing would be to promote again. Thanks to Mike for helping us.
Absolutely.
Get a great mountaineer in KJ Harris, who had that phenomenal game back in 2004 against ECU when he ran for 338 yards. It's a thing of beauty. We'll have some film from that, and we'll have KJ with us next Wednesday night. Please join us, Mountaineer Locker Room, then and now, live at 7 and anytime in the video vault.
There you go. Looking forward to that one being another great show. Mike, go ahead.
Are we going to give game balls this week?
Well, yeah, I forgot about that. Our game balls.
And you got to answer the question. This
That's
this
right.
torture.
So Frank,
This torture.
Frank, you go first with your game ball, and then Mike, and then I'll go. And then Mike, you can give us our trivia question answer.
I want you guys
All
to
right.
answer first, the trivia first before I give it. Yeah, go ahead.
All right, Frank, go ahead with your game ball this week.
There were so many guys that came through on the defense. I can't pick out one guy. If I did, it'd probably be Wilson, but I think it'd be shortchanged. I think it's the entire unit. The defense played just this was their game of the season.
Yep.
Believe it or not, I'm going to give my game ball to Neil Brown. I think he had him ready to play. He resisted to come back. He may have had some questionable calls, according to some people, but he led him to a victory. So my game ball goes to Neil Brown.
Let's see. I'm going to go somewhere different. I'll pick Bradley, the linebacker. He had the wherewithal to pick up the ball and get it in the end zone when they weren't sure if it was a pass or a fumble. And he had the wherewithal to go ahead and pick it up and get on in the end zone. And as it turned out, it was a touchdown for us. So a smart play on his part. So I'll give mine to him.
All right, the trivia question. How many helmets did they take to the game in Cincinnati today?
I muted myself because we're getting some feedback. Sorry about that. I was muted. Probably better that I was muted. I'm going to say 86.
Okay. Frank?
I know it's got to be some kind of crazy answer. So I'm going to say 1.
One football helmet for 70 players?
Yeah.
The answer is 70 because the Big 12 travel squad is 70 players.
There you go.
Now, I asked Dan Nealon, the head equipment guy, this, and I thought it would be a few more with the extras. But
Yeah, that's crazy.
He said 70. So that's the answer to our first trivia question. An anti-Google question, by the way.
That's right. We don't want anything that can Google.
That's right. That's right.
Of course, I thought you was trying to trick us some way. So that's why I said 1. I said there got to be something.
It's like the Price is Right without going over.
Yeah, I didn't want to go over. I want to stay below the over number. 70.
Guys,
It doesn't seem like many, does it?
No, it doesn't. But guys, I appreciate you having me on as always.
Oh, good job, Mike.
And I really enjoy this, and I enjoy you guys.
Well, Mike, we appreciate you, and as always, very insightful. Have some good points to be made, and you're very knowledgeable as far as the games are concerned. We appreciate that as well, Frank. As always, we appreciate you keeping things on track for us. And there's Mike and Mark. That's our 2 gurus that keep us afloat here on the Mountaineer Locker Room. Then and now when we do it with our guests and so forth. So we appreciate those guys more than they know, I'm sure. Frank, again, thank you for keeping all the technology afloat and getting us on here and all the graphics and all that. You do a great job. And thanks to everybody for tuning in and all the comments. We appreciate that. And more than anything, we appreciate the fact that the Mountaineers won the game. That's a big plus for our Saturday here. That'll get us the rest of the week.
You ain't kidding.
That's right.
Good job, guys.
Yep. Appreciate everybody. And we look forward to seeing you Wednesday night on the Mountaineer Locker Room then and now. Good day, everybody.